A lot. Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to welcome you to our second installment of our STEM lesson showcase this afternoon. As you are getting settled in, we're going to start pretty quick. Just note the instructions in the chat box that we are going to ask that you keep your video and your mics off, but we do welcome your comments and your questions in the chat box. That will help us move it along. Today we've got a great program. Like I said, my name is Patty Ann Taylor. I'm a staff member at STEM Centers SC, and we are a statewide network that works directly with South Carolina's K through 12 community to advance STEM instruction and initiatives in districts and schools around the state. So we welcome you, and we are excited to get started. Today we have the honor of having our STEM Teacher of the Year, Tracy Elmore, as well as several of our finalists that will be presenting STEM lessons that they've been using over the last month or so that have been successful in the remote classroom. And they'll each be sharing for about 5 minutes. And hopefully at the end, we'll have time for a few questions. But if not, I assure you, if you write them down, we will definitely follow up. We will also have asked our participants to be sharing the information in their presentation. So once we get those collected from all of our educators, we'll send those out following the program. So with no further ado, we are going to start with Amy Baldwin. And Amy is our STEM Educator of the Year finalist from the Low Country, and she works at Oak Brook Middle School. So go ahead, Amy.
Right. Hopefully I don't have any screen share issues, maybe. There we go. All right. For some reason, though, it does not allow me to screen share at full screen with you. But I'm Amy Baldwin, like Patty Ann said, and I teach at Oak Brook Middle School, which is in Dorchester County. And we are currently not a one-to-one school district. So when we had the very short notice to move all of our learning online, we were given the task of creating assignments that could be done without technology. So the first two projects I'm going to share with you guys today can be done if your students do not have access to any technology at all. So the first project that I'm going to share is called the Invention Project. This is actually a modification of a project shared by Cecilia Kelly, which is a Project Lead the Way teacher in the upstate. And it's basically to have the students create an invention based on something in their house they think that needs to be improved. And so I've got these in different formats, in different ways. We ask them to sketch and explain or do a video. So for instance, I received this project from a student where they did a no noise doorbell because they were tired of the UPS man waking up their brother or sister. And so you can see that it would ring here and then light up, and the student typed and did a handwritten explanation for me on their design. I had another student who had access to more technology who did this design. He listed some things that he wanted to improve or create. Apparently televisions were very popular this week of e-learning. And he created this device that worked as a timer setting so you could effectively manage the amount of time that you spent on your devices. And as you could see, he had a little bit more technical drawing. He had some writing ability. I even had a student who sent me a commercial, didn't get quite permission to share with you guys, but I'll share the topic, and where the student created never-ending toilet paper in his video to me from his family that they did on their smartphone, with every family member yelling out of the bathroom that they needed toilet paper and then him handing it in. So lots of creative ways to do it with or without the use of technology. Based on the feedback from this project, our April project that we assigned to our students was a furniture redesign. We figured the students have been sitting for multiple days at the same table and chair and would like to innovate it. So the table design project, we took the advice and the feedback from the kids and the parents and broke it down into stages so that they could easily submit it and know their checkpoints that we would normally do in a classroom. So step one was they were supposed to sketch the original table or design, include the measurements, and brainstorm ideas and ways to improve that design. And so this is an example from a student. He drew this table or stool he was sitting at and listed that it was uncomfortable, not tall enough, not enough room, it was too small for him, and then how he was going to modify the design. Step two was they were to innovate the design to solve one of their problems, and they were asked to do a full size annotated colored sketch to send with us, an explanation. And this was that student's improvement on his design, he made a nice thick blue cushion, which I could probably reuse sitting on the chairs in my house right now, and explained his innovation to us. And then their last step in this process was to create a presentation, and we gave them a choice. If they didn't have access to a technology, they could just write a script for us, or they could create a video. If they wanted to use technology, they could do a PowerPoint presentation for us, or again, no technology, you could create a model using cardboard, Legos, whatever model materials you have around your house. And so this young man decided that, again, technology he didn't have access to, so he made his commercial and wrote his script and explained this conversation between Joe and Bob about the comfy chair that they should purchase. I also received projects from students who had been with me for 3 years, because I do teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. My 8th grader took his design, used his sketching skills that he had, that he's used in design and modeling, and took those further to write a more detailed explanation. So you could level this project down to elementary and up if you needed. And then his step 2 was a very detailed color design of his final project. So again, many options. He did a PowerPoint presentation for us as well. So this is an option, and you could do this with middle school as I did, and I did share this with Patty Ann, so she will share these out so you can have the examples as references as well as the directions. But I did this also with my 3rd grader who was able to draw the pictures. So, Patty Ann, that's
Thanks.
what I have.
Thanks so much. I feel like we're on a game show here. Thanks so much, Amy. I love these. All these are great ideas. They're awesome. And like I said, Amy will has already made this material available, and I'll make sure I get it out to all you participants. Next up, we have Tracy Elmore, who is our 2020 STEM Educator of the Year from Lugoff Eldon Middle School. Thanks, Tracy.
All right, let me get my screen up for you. Okay, can everybody see my screen? This STEM lesson that I'm sharing is a community service 3D printing project. Students are designing and printing 3D face mask extenders, and these extenders help to hold the mask in place and relieves the pressure around the ears, and it also accommodates children to adults, which is pretty cool. And I've always believed in teaching my students that there's a world beyond the classroom, a world that we need to help and take the learning from our classroom out into our community. And I feel like it's important for students to be involved in service learning projects. And throughout the years, my students have been involved in several community service projects, such as collecting food for the local food pantry, gathering items for soldiers in Afghanistan, reading books and singing songs and presenting Christmas programs at local assisted living centers. They've also helped soldiers at McCready Training Center to clean parts of the Palmetto Trail. So at LEMS, we're very familiar with giving to the community, and making this transition to digital community learning service was just an easy thing to do. For example, before we left school in March, my students were designing a 3D printing kindness token to sell to the student body to raise money for a classmate that was in ICU. And they wanted to help her family with the medical cost. While we've been out for COVID-19, my students were searching for ways to help. I provided my students with news articles and news clips about the use of 3D printers along that helped with the medical profession and the community. And this particular article is a 12-year-old young man about the age of my students that designed the extender. My students read and responded to the article through Flipgrid and were able to use Tinkercad to create their design for their face mask extenders. The Kershaw County robotics team, under the direction of Paul Sullivan, were printing the face mask extenders. And since there was a huge demand for this, he asked if my students would be interested in helping. So I sent out a Google form asking for the interest of my students, as well as if they had a 3D printer at home. Students were also able to let me know if they were available to help deliver or to identify places or people that would meet them. We've had an overwhelming response to designing, printing, and delivering these extenders. My students have been able to help the KC robotics team in printing and delivering over 300 3D face mask extenders to surrounding hospitals, assisted living centers, pharmacies, nursing homes. And students have emailed me talking about how good they felt about helping others. And we talked about that it was a great opportunity to fill someone's bucket with happiness, and in turn, it blesses us. Students use Tinkercad or SolidWorks as the CAD platform to design and print 3D face mask extenders. And here you can see some of the examples that the students have created. The top right is the original design. And we printed, and these actually work. Students have borrowed 3D printers from the schools and are printing in their homes to help meet the high demand for the extenders. And they're meeting with social distancing to deliver the mask extenders. And I received a phone call from Morningside talking about how happy they are to have these extenders, because wearing a mask all day, every day, the extenders help to make it more comfortable. Even stakeholders in the community have donated materials and supplies for the printers and supplied face masks for students when needed. This is one of the students on the robotics team that made the cover of one of our local newsprints. The collaboration between the high school and middle school helps to bridge the gap for STEM education and provides opportunities to use technology, research, collaboration through all the grade levels. Students in my class also read articles from the CDC about the reason for face masks and the proper way to wear them. In this assignment, we had a Google Meet class discussion on the face mask, and a student even won a Chick-fil-A gift card in a drawing for participating. And through this project, students experienced the engineering design process, integration of literacy strategies, and the use of space measurement skills to learn math and science concepts in real-world problems. The students are excited to have the opportunity to serve their community heroes while still completing e-learning assignments. This service project helps to create responsible digital citizens that learn empathy, teamwork, and problem-solving skills, giving students ownership in their learning and in the future of STEM education. And this is an example of a rubric I used for the project. I'll put the link in the chat. And if you don't have access to computers, you can do it on graph paper or regular paper. Before my students even go to Tinkercad, that's the way that we introduce the lesson. Using graph paper, you can talk about the little block, and each block would stand for like 5 centimeters or whatever. Learning how to draw to scale is an important life lesson, especially in STEM education. I also add a link to an example of a draw to scale worksheet that I use in my classroom as well. Thank you for listening.
Thanks so much, Tracy. And as I said, if you have questions for Tracy, keep writing those in the chat and we'll make sure we get all of those. I think service projects are such a great way to incorporate STEM because you can pull in so many different things. And in this day and age, I think it really helps kids to feel a little more in control and help to settle them a little bit. So thank you so much, Tracy. Next up, we have Chris Burrell. Chris, did I pronounce your last name correct? Where'd Chris go? Chris, tell me how to pronounce your last name.
Hey, that's right. It's buy early, like buy early,
Oh,
like Black Friday, you want to buy early.
Hey, that's awesome. I love it. And Chris is our STEM Educator of the Year finalist for the Western region, and he teaches at Fisher Middle School. Take it away, Chris.
Thanks, Patty Ann. So these are just some options I've given students. I feel like when you give students options, they definitely respond to having that freedom, having that ownership in the process. Part of what I've asked students to do is to use materials that they can find at home. So they were given both digital options and options that they can have at home. So this is one of my more recent choice boards that we put together, and a lot of these come from design challenges that are some of the classical ones. I think the folks in this group probably have heard from them. These definitely can be tailored to an elementary audience, all the way up to a high school. And you can probably adjust the criteria for what you're looking for your students to do. But anything I've asked students to do has been basically using what they can find at home. If it's not in the house, maybe they can use sticks from a tree or bush or whatever they can find outside. But as much as possible, try to use what they have in the house. And I think that brings that creative element to these projects. What I was going to plan on doing is kind of just showcase some of the work that I've gotten from students. We actually just did a Google Meet this week with my students where we just did a little protocol where we talked about how to give feedback that was kind, specific, and helpful. but I wanted to kind of push students to take their work to the next level so they can see exactly what students have done, and also get ideas for or basically get inspired to do it, but do it to another level. So here are a few from these choice boards, and I will be sharing out these choice boards with you all after the presentation. This is the protocol we talked about, and I kind of model for students how we give feedback. We do the I like, I wonder, and next steps. So we always start with some praise and what we wonder about, and then what are some next steps for students to take it, to make improvements, to take it to the next level. The first challenge that a student did was this egg drop challenge. I love design challenges because it gets students to think creatively, to problem solve, use those higher order thinking skills, but also kind of models real world problems. So, egg drop challenge, I asked them to think about what applications could this have outside of the classroom or outside of doing this at home. So this was an example of a student that they're required to turn in a video or a photo of their work with a description of the challenge and what they learned. So this was one that a student shared. I'll see if this plays right now. Let me just hit present and share that. So that was his design. He did tell me this design did fail. It didn't work like he wanted to, but they were limited to the number of materials that they used, and he talked to me about how he would improve his work. So that's one of the challenges from the choice board. The next one is the Marble Run Challenge. You may have heard this before, seen this before, where they kind of create a course. I just thought it's really fun. And I think, as teachers, we want to kind of meet students where they are for things that they can do at home, but get them really excited about learning, about engineering, about problem solving. And I think this is a fun way to do it. Especially this might be geared more for your elementary and middle school students. But they had some criteria here. But here's the students' work right here. So that was the Marble Run Challenge. Next, we had an option for using the computer. And if you notice, this looks like Tinkercad. This was a sandcastle challenge where they had to basically reverse engineer a sandcastle that was pictured there. And they could use Tinkercad or Autodesk Fusion. Tinkercad is a free software. I think it's great 3D modeling software to start with for students. They get to basically drag and drop the different elements. And I think one of the cool features that Tinkercad came out with recently is at-home models like paper towel holders or toilet paper rings or popsicle sticks. So if they do a prototype made by hand, they can bring that into the software and use that as part of their 3D model. But I just thought this was a neat challenge for students to do. But it uses a computer, it uses a free CAD modeling website, but it gets them to develop and build their 3D modeling skills. That was one of the other choices. This one I thought was a really neat one. This is a green home challenge. Create your own home using having at least a sleeping area, a living area, and a surface area. There's some great free ones that are out there, such as Home Styler or Floor Planner. This, again, I think, this might be for your upper elementary, middle, and high school. But software is very user-friendly. This was an example that a girl did, really, really cool, what she came up with. They can design the floor plan, they can add furniture, It's nice because they can add music, but basically this is something she created. She created this floor space, she created the rooms, and there's different bedrooms, but you can explore what she made. And I thought that was kind of neat. So that was the home styler one. And I think I'm running out of time here. And then we had the Rube Goldberg. That was another challenge that we did. Here's some other sand castles that I shared. This is with Autodesk. Here's another one. And here's another egg drop challenge. But I wanted to kind of share that these were just the examples of student work, but our school is actually doing a time capsule. So we're kind of collecting all the students' work, and we have a form for each grade level, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, where they're going to submit their work, and we're going to make a little digital time capsule. And we have future plans for actually taking it digitally, making it onto, putting on some hard drives or discs that we can bury to kind of capture this unique moment in history. And this is coming from all the teachers. And then I'll share this with you all so you can see it. I know I'm out of time here. And then as far as grading goes, our district it's basically based on participation, completion, that type of thing. So very simple rubric, because we kind of are asked to extend grace for our students because according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have kids at the very bottom of that hierarchy where they may not be getting at home. They're not really having the same playing field as they have in the classroom. So this is the grading rubric that we're using, and I think that's my time. So thank you all.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Chris. I love the engineering challenges. I think those are so fun to keep kids engaged. And the time capsule is such a unique idea that folks can even do with families over the summertime. So thank you for sharing that. Kirsten is our last presenter, and Kirsten is our STEM Educator of the Year finalist for the Midland regions, and she teaches at the Richland II Institute of Innovation. Thanks, Kirsten.
Thanks, and I'll try to make this as quick as I can because I
no worries. Go ahead.
We're fine. So I teach grades 10 through 12 that come from all of our schools in Richland too. It is a college and career class, so it is problem and project based with no prerequisites. So we get a lot of different experiences. And one of the things we try to do in all of our projects is have a global impact component. And so the project I want to share with you that my students have been working on is a global partnership for solar energy. And our global partner is the Zozo Foundation outside of Cape Town, South Africa. They're a fantastic NGO in one of the former townships. And when I visited them last summer, they were very interested in incorporating solar energy and having our students collaborate into making, I don't know that I said this last time, light and phone chargers. So a low voltage, simple, portable thing for students to bring in and out of the classrooms. Unfortunately, they have been really devastated by the COVID-19, and they're on a little bit of a lag with our project, although they have all the materials. And we really then focused on my students at home being able to make the directions and move forward. My students have the same materials that the students in Free Ground do as well, that we just dropped off at their door, and I'll get to that here in a minute. So the activities in this project, we use project management resources, which I sent that in the other resources tab, Patty Ann, to help students really independently or collaboratively identify problem, criteria, and constraints, specifically with working with another culture, and those considerations that we need to make in building global competencies, building empathy, recognizing that we're designing with and not designing for. So helping the students recognize the differences that they're going to see in solar energy in the different areas. Just really quickly, my students then, after we did our background information and solar math with series and parallel circuits and all the good stuff. They were tasked with building their solar chargers, coming up with ways to test them, to test the voltage and optimize all those variables in getting the right output, and then to share the results as creating an instruction manual or a video for the students in Vreegrond, who will do the same thing, and then we will share later in the year. So what's worked with this is really that the students, I said earlier today, they really had to be more innovative in terms of figuring out what they had at home when something didn't work. Since I wasn't allowed to send soldering irons home with them, you know, if a wire breaks off, what's a conductor, what's an insulator, what's going to work for you, adapting that. And I think that was really a great point for them to reflect on what things are like when you don't have a limitless lab, when you're working by yourself, and to really think about the sustainability of projects. And I have here, and it's in the resources, just the SAGE model of global collaborations that, like others have said today, that student choice piece is so important. And what I found with this project and others is that authentic experience of recognizing that your work is actually going to be used, and that you have an audience beyond your teacher or classroom, really just, it encourages my students to want to do the work. Almost all of them have completed it, and all of them have completed at least parts of it. And so what they were doing, so I'm going to skip for time, is we were using a simple non-soldering kit. They still had to use their circuitry skills that they learned, and again, they were dropped off at each of their homes, and to build it and then test it. And that was, again, another student choice of how do we, what do you want your independent and dependent variables to be? And they discovered a lot of variation, and I'm really looking forward when the Vreegrond students have the same thing, because being in a completely different hemisphere, I'm eager for the students to get to share that information. So even though we were isolated, they were still able to build and test and make these instruction manuals and videos. This is just an example I pulled. There are about 16 steps. The students did put in quite a bit of work for it, of just ways that they have explained it. I really wanted to show the video, but most of their videos are 3 to 4 minutes. So I know as I'm running out of time, what I want to just do is very quickly, we use technical rubrics that are copyrighted, but if for anybody interested in doing a global project around STEM or another topic, there are free rubrics on what we should be looking at for everything from pre-K to 12. They are by grade level at the Asia Society, and they also have a fantastic just library of resources for sample projects around the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as modules for teachers on how to build global STEM projects. So I just wanted to share those resources. So. And, okay.
You did good.
I probably missed half of what we were talking about, but that's all right.
Well, I appreciate it, Kirsten. And I'm sure that our participants would love to see a link, have a link of that student video. If you are willing to share it, you can send that to me. I'll get it out to participants. I'm sure they would love to look at it at some other time. So I appreciate it. We are going to get ready to wrap up here, but if participants, if there are questions, please put them in the chat box. Now, if there's any comments you have for our participants, I'm sure they would love to hear it. We just so appreciate you all coming to us today and sharing this stuff. I think actually seeing how things are really working make a big difference right now, and I know folks really do appreciate it. A couple final announcements before we completely wrap up is we have got coming up next week our last teacher chats as far as we have planned at this point. And I know folks are getting ready to wrap up their school year, so we are envisioning it'll probably be our last one. But that said, we think it's a really important one. Next Wednesday, we will be hosting our guest speaker, Representative Celeste Davis, to talk about what might be in the coming year. And we would love to have you join us. We will be sending you, following this session, an email that will have a link that you'll have a final opportunity to write any comments on the session and ask any questions you may have thought about afterwards to our participants. So look for that. Also contained in that will be a link to sign up for next week's presentation with Celeste Davis, and an opportunity for you to write down any questions or concerns or things that you might want her to address. So I really appreciate it. We will hang out here for a couple minutes while you finish up your comments, and then we wish you all the best for the evening.